Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting version of Chip Talks Health. Today, we're going to talk about the farmer. Yep, the farmer, and the critical importance of the farmer really in your health and the health of your children. So, let's dive into this a little bit. Um, what are the two most important foods you eat every day? Come on now. You guys can answer this. What are the two most important foods that you eat every day? And people will give all kinds of answers to this question. I love asking this question to, let's say, a group of medical professionals like doctors and watch the shocked looks on their faces and the scrambling around because they don't understand or know the answer. And some people say protein. Well, protein's important, but it is not the most important thing that you eat every day. The most important thing that you eat every day are dietary fats, and in particular, omega 3 and omega 6 fatty acids. Okay. They are absolutely the most critical foods that we eat every day. Now, in our food supply right now, and in our, let's say, just general population out there, we're consuming about 40 omega 6 fats to one omega 3 fat. And that's about how our diet is balanced. Now, I've done a lot of shows and will continue to do a lot of shows about omega 3 and omega 6 balance. And in fact, I've just written and submitted a white paper to the administration on the critical nature of this disbalance and how this is the underpinning really for a lot of the issues that we have, like obesity and chronic inflammation, and reactivity, let's just say, in our immune system. So why have our food allergies gone up so much? Why are we so allergic? Why are we so sick? Why do we get Crohn's and IBS and autoimmune diseases and cancers at the rate that we're getting them, which is far higher than has ever been in our history? But why is that happening? Well, absolutely, the underpinnings of this have to do with omega 6 and omega 3 balance. Okay. And those fats should be balanced in our diet. But today I'm going to talk about something really insidious that happens. And, you can go down the conspiracy rabbit hole if you'd like. I kind of have a tendency to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole because I see this hidden hand in so many things. This, let's say a hand that has knowledge, the same knowledge that I do, but is using it to hurt you, to hurt your health, to make you less healthy, to make you more reactive, to make you more inflammatory. And really, the why, I don't know why, to corrupt the God in you, to make you a better product for the healthcare system. I don't know, but it sure the heck is happening. And it's not a mistake because it's happening in so many different ways. And, soap to, products that you put on yourself to polyester in our clothes. So none of those things help you, by the way. All those things help you and hurt you in a little bit. But let's talk a little bit more about the farmer in particular, because I think this is super important. And we're going to talk about chicken. Okay. So first of all, let me walk you through just omega 3, omega 6 again. If you haven't gotten this from the last, 100 times I've said it in podcasts, and hopefully you'll get it this time. And apologies if you already know this, but let me walk you through this before I walk you through kind of this information about chicken and how chicken is raised in our society, and some information, let's say, just about chicken. But first of all, omega 3 and omega 6. So the way that we're designed, we for whatever reason, we don't think of ourselves as the wonderful, beautiful machine that this thing is, that our physicality is, right? And it's so sophisticated. I mean, you're just a collection of cells, and somehow those cells all come together to form systems like a heart and kidneys and blood vessels and all that. And then all that stuff comes together to form you in some way. But you're just a big bag of cells that somehow come together and find a way to conform and build you, which is really cool. Now, again, I think we're also an incarnated multidimensional spirit, and the crossover point of basically our spirit to our physicality is in mitochondria. And this is why you'll hear me talk so much about mitochondria, optimizing mitochondria. And if mitochondria are optimized, again, your cells are going to be optimized and you're going to be optimized. It's just really that simple. But here's a way that you can really de-optimize mitochondria and de-optimize yourself. And that's exactly what we're doing in our society right now by what we eat. Okay. So the easiest way to illustrate this is just, with some examples. So if we eat omega-3 and omega-6 fats in balance, that sets a really cool situation within our immune system. So you're constantly getting attacked and infected, and allergies and environmental stuff happens to us all the time. And again, because we don't feel, let's say, our immune system working, we don't really realize the stresses and strains that happen on our immune system. But our immune system has to fight all these little battles all the time. And again, sometimes it loses, right? Sometimes we get infected with stuff. Or sometimes something is so severe in the environment, like plutonium or lead, that our immune system can't really defend us from those things. So, but our immune system is always working, always working, always working, and it needs resources. So it runs on things. It basically needs precursors to be able to do its work. And those precursors come from omega-3 and omega-6 fats. So without omega-3 and omega-6 fats, you're kind of left to your microbiome to build you an immune system. And that's not going to be very effective. Honestly, that's kind of what happens in autism, because autistic people cannot deal with omega-3 and omega-6s the way that you and I can, because of oxidative stress and D6D, delta 6 desaturase is kind of whacked out in them. So they build, the really severe autistic people build their immune system from their gut biome. It's arguably it's kind of better, but it results in autism. So as far as sickness goes, they don't really get sick in the same way that you and I do. They don't get cancer in the same way that you and I do. But again, this has to do with an inability to deal with omega-3 and omega-6 fats, which creates a very, very severe neurocognitive type situation. So, but if you can properly deal with omega-3 and omega-6 fats and you're eating them in balance, everything is associated with this, but let's just look at your immune system. So your immune system is going to be very dynamic and able to, let's say you have an insult, you have an allergy, you get infected, you're going to be able to inflame a little bit, deal with that situation, heal that situation, and then deflame and come right back to normal. So that's the way that we should operate. What's happening right now, because of our omega-6 disbalance and because we're eating, anywhere from 20 to 40 omega-6s over one omega-3, what that does is that programs you. Okay. So that literally programs your immune system to be super reactive and super inflammatory. Now, why does that matter? I mean, I might want to crank up my inflammation. I might want to crank up my reactivity, but not to the level that it is now, because what happens is your immune system sort of goes full tilt boogie on anything, right? And that might be something that you need to have maximum, immune potential fired at, like an infection. But it might be something minor, like a small allergy that you're throwing full horsepower at. And again, what does that do? That leaves you vulnerable. If I'm expending all of my immune energy, let's say, on little things, that leaves me very vulnerable to big things. And this is the very reason why we have to, in people like with COVID, so you remember we had to basically give them drugs that would suppress their immune system. So monoclonal antibodies, that's what monoclonal antibodies do, is they suppress your immune system. So they calm down this hyperreactivity so that your immune system can then deal with things. But the underlying cause of that is omega-6 and omega-3 disbalance. Okay. So that's why it's so important to talk about. Well, okay, Chip, that's really important, but what's changed? What happened? Why haven't we always been this way? And we have not always been this way. We didn't have autoimmunes in 1900. We didn't have the incidence of diabetes. Heart disease is a new thing that's only happened in the 19th century. We really didn't die of heart disease back in the day. A few people, minor, very small, let's say statistics, but not anything like it is today. So something has happened, let's say since 1930 forward, that has caused us to greatly decline in our health, our mental ability, everything. So as a society, we're going in the toilet because really of our health. And you can look at the incidence of disease, of cancer, of, any statistic on health will tell you exactly what I'm saying. So what happened? What happened? What happened? Right? Is it because we stopped eating vegetables? No, we were eating vegetables. We were probably eating more vegetables in the 50s, 40s and 50s, than we were previous because we were, starving kind of the early 1900s, right? We didn't have a lot to eat. So, our food supply, though, mainly has changed. But this is where it gets insidious because if you look at, let's say, who owns big ag, big agriculture, companies like BlackRock, and there's, others like that. Let's say these big conglomeration companies own big stakes in agriculture, in, let's say meat farming, in feed companies, and then also in the pharmaceutical industry. So let me walk you through this, okay? Because this is just what happens. So I'll start this with in my co-author in the white paper that I sent to the administration, to the White House and HHS and DOD, is a lady named Dr. Artemis P. Simopoulos. And Dr. Simopoulos is probably the world expert, let's say, on omega-3, omega-6 science. And she really wrote the book on omega-3 and omega-6 science. She did that, back in the 80s, even before, maybe even before the 80s, but, a long time ago. So this is not like new science by any means, but certainly her work has been suppressed. She got plaudits like she should have, and she was well recognized at the NIH for her work. But her work, she should have won a Nobel Prize for this work. I mean, it's magnificent work. But let me tell you a little bit about kind of how it started. And so she was studying omega-3 and omega-6 balance in humans and mammals. And she knew that it was very important to have a, let's say, 1-to-1 or close to 1-to-1 balance. So 4-to-1 for 4 omega-6s to 1 omega-3 is still okay. But somewhere between 1-to-1 and 4-to-1. And she'd done a lot of research on, disease and function and began to really tie those things back to the importance of omega-3 and omega-6 balance. And she's from Greece. And so she was in Greece and she decided to look at a chicken egg, right? Just a chicken egg for omega-3 and omega-6 balance. And so they analyzed this chicken egg. And what they found was that it was a perfect 1-to-1 balance between omega-3 and omega-6. And they're like, oh my gosh, we have discovered the superfood. Eggs will be our superfood. And, they're easy to have chickens, make eggs, and they're readily available in our food supply. And oh my gosh, what a great thing this is. And so she went back to the United States, very excited about chicken eggs. And they got some eggs at NIH when she got back, and they analyzed those eggs, and those eggs were 20-to-1 omega-6 over omega-3. And they were like, what in the world is going on? Are Greek chickens better than, USA chickens in some way? But then they began to analyze what those chickens were eating. And what they found was that the chickens in Greece were eating a lot of green things, and especially parsley, but they ate a lot of green leaves, green leafy things. And then if you look at the chickens here in the United States, they ate a lot of corn, right? They ate a lot of corn. So basically what was learned was that whatever you feed that meat source is going to be imbued in the meat of that feed source. And so if you feed chickens a bunch of corn, they're going to that's going to be reflected in their meat. And their meat is going to have that ratio of omega-6 over omega-3 that's going to be heavy, like 20-to-1. It'll also be reflected in their eggs. Why is this? Because every cell is built from omega-3 and omega-6 fats. So whatever ratio you're eating, that's going to be the same ratio that's reflected in your cells and in meat, in your meat or in the meat of a chicken. So let's get to the crux of the matter, because this is really interesting. So if you are a major chicken farmer here in the United States of America, let's say you grow for one of the, or you produce chickens for one of the major chicken producers, like a Tyson or a Pilgrim Farms, or there's a bunch of them. I don't want to call anybody out in particular, but I certainly want to illustrate this point. So if you're a farmer for one of those, you basically provide the land and the housing for the chickens. They provide the chickens, and most importantly, they provide the feed. So you are not allowed to feed those chickens what you think would be best for those chickens. You're not allowed to free range those chickens. You're not allowed to feed them leafy green stuff. You feed them corn and soybeans in the meal that is provided to you by those chicken producers. So those chicken producers are purposely conditioning that meat. Let that sink in. Okay. Those chicken producers, they know what I know. This is well known in science. Artemis Thomopoulos knew this in the 1980s. So these food companies definitely know this. These food companies, in fact, have built research to, kind of minimize Dr. Thomopoulos' work and to really lessen it and to hide it and to make it where it is not in your consciousness and not part of what's in your daily thought process. But think about this. They are requiring and forcing. Some of these chicken farmers know, they know this is not good and this is not producing good chicken meat. This is producing, a very kind of harmful type situation. And they have, fought back. They've tried to free range their chickens. They've tried to feed them more leafy greens. No, you don't get a contract. We'll cancel your contract if you do that. You feed these chickens what we tell you to feed them, or we'll cancel your contract. We'll ruin your livelihood. And that's exactly what's happening now, folks. And guess what? If you look at that feed, it is corn and soybean. And corn and soybean are super heavy in omega-6 with no omega-3 at all. Now, in some cases, you might have some specialty chickens where they're advertising them as, free range or omega-3. You may have a little bit of that situation, but it's nothing like buying chickens from, the guy that here in Oklahoma that's a chicken farmer, right? That is a way better situation. If you can go out and see those chickens and understand how those chickens are eating, and that they're eating grass and not corn. So grass is a great source of omega-3. In fact, what makes grass supple and kind of, malleable is the omega-3 fats in leaves. Okay. So any leafy green is a source of omega-3s. It's not the best source, but any leafy green is a source of omega-3s. So when you let chickens or cows or pigs or sheep or whatever eat grass, you're basically allowing them to eat omega-3s, which imbues into their meat. If you take them out of the field and put them in a feedlot and you feed them corn, their meat is going to be omega-6 heavy. So it's very difficult for us right now to balance our omega-3 and omega-6 fats if you eat meat. Okay, if you eat meat, that meat is likely way disbalanced in omega-6 over omega-3 heavy. But we need to wake up to this, and we need to begin to get in the middle of these situations where chicken and cows and our meat sources are being mass produced, because they're not being mass produced in a way that's good for your health. In fact, they're being mass produced in the exact opposite way, a way that's extremely bad for your health. And I would point to these meat sources as the main problem. It's easy without meat, it's easy to balance your omega-3, omega-6. You just need to eat some leafy greens, or you need to, supplement with chia seeds or flax seeds or hemp seeds or things like that. But there are sources of omega-3 in our dietary system. But the meat is just so out of balance right now. And this is really what's whacking us out more than anything else. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to find, if you're so situated, and some of us can't afford to do this, and I get that. I mean, the meat, let's say, that we get from that free range farmer might be a little bit more expensive than what we pay at the grocery store. But I would encourage you all to go find local sources of your meat and make sure that those local sources are grass feeding that meat. That meat will be like a vitamin compared to the meat that we eat now. So, all right, we'll leave it there. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this exciting version of Chip Talks Health. We'll be back next week with way more information about how you work and about how you can help yourself and how you can kind of defend yourself in this crazy, whacked out world that, appears to be trying to tear you down. So we're going to help you with tools to help that not happen. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week on another exciting version of Chip Talks Health. See you later. Thank you for tuning in to Chip Talks Health, where we uncover the truth so your body can do what it was designed to do, and that's heal. If today's episode helped you think differently about your health, give us a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Want to go deeper? Visit TrueMedics.com to explore science-backed solutions, or book a bioresonance scan at Neighborly Wellness to find out the root cause of what's holding you back. Until next time, stay curious, stay well, and keep listening to your body.